I remember a night on the couch with my wife where we were like crying and, like it was very emotional, kind of exploring like, do you feel the sense that God might be calling us to plant a church? And my wife saying, yes, but I don't know if that's what I want to do. We're kind of both in that place. And I remember having a conversation with some of the other guys on staff at Door of Hope saying, I don't know if this is a bad burrito or what, or if maybe it's the Holy Spirit, but we feel prompted to start this conversation about church planting. And it might go away or it might not. And it just didn't. And we were affirmed by the elders at Door of Hope and Josh, the lead pastor. And it just started really probably a 3-year journey of figuring out, is this the time that the Lord wants us to do this? And is what we feel God is calling us to lining up with what Door of Hope specifically feels called to do? And over time, the answer just became a clear yes. After all the buildup, we had our first worship gathering March 1st, 2020. And then we had a second worship gathering March 8th, 2020. And then the global pandemic hit, and we did not have a third worship gathering, the stay-at-home order and all that stuff. And so instantly, 2 weeks into the life of our church, we were confronted with how do we pivot and how do we continue on as a brand new, fresh church community where we don't know when we're going to be able to have what we would think of as a typical Sunday gathering again. So it was just over a week ago that we had our 2-year anniversary as a church, and the whole 2 years basically has been under the shadow of the pandemic. That said, it's been amazing. Frustrating. There have been dark days, there have been frustrating days, there have been scary days we didn't know what was going to happen. But the A story for me certainly has been God's faithfulness and provision. We're still here and we're still growing, and we've learned a lot and have been deeply shaped, I think, for the better by the challenges of these 2 years. It was really at Western that a lot of my convictions around what is a church, what is a pastor, what is local eldership, what kinds of relationships do the elders and leaders of a local church need to have to the congregation, all of that instantly came to bear as the reality of starting something new became clearer and firmer. It pragmatically changed the things that I was advocating for, the things that I knew I needed to firmly commit to. I was going to step into this, that I think have produced a lot of health already for our church. I think the idea, something that I remember thinking a lot in Gary Brashear's classes was kind of the idea of levels of theological certainty and trying to really define what are the things of Christian orthodoxy that you really need to be willing to die for, the things that have kept the church together over the centuries. And then what are the things that are worth dividing for? What are the things that are just simply worth debating for and discussing over? That has been really clarifying in terms of holding a church together in a city like Portland. There are so many things that I learned at Western that weren't instantly clear to me, like, oh, how is this actually going to translate? Or why do I need to know this for practical ministry? Because that's kind of what the world I'd been thinking rather than the academy, thinking about the local church. And, thank God that there were professors and programs set up to make you think of these things ahead of time, because there have already been examples where I'm like, oh, that's why I needed to know that. That's why I needed to think about that. That's why I needed to have a more firmly developed ecclesiology or this or that. It just filled in gaps that I didn't know that I had. And I'm so grateful that there were wise people who had gone ahead that knew those gaps were there and that they needed to be approached ahead of time. It's been incredibly clarifying. It's made my understanding of the gospel so much firmer. It's made my love for the King a lot deeper. And I just feel so much more confident from the training I've received at Western to come and to be able to navigate the challenges of taking the one true faith delivered once for all to our unique time and place and setting. I could not be more grateful for Western.